All right, we're recording. Hi, Court.
Hi,
Hey,
Larry.
Court.
There
I had to get my hearing aids cleaned out.
too much earwax.
Yes, they get really nasty and plugged up.
It's a good way to start the recording. So how come, oh, here he is. How come when they do an NAIA Zoom meeting, they don't just put it up on YouTube that night?
Well, a couple reasons. First of all, I don't have access to the YouTube account.
Yeah, but I mean, shouldn't that happen
Well,
before the meeting?
Yeah, we've got a lot of things going on. And then on some of them, I need to put some additional info like the show directors. Because I got started a little bit late. I need to put a couple slides at the beginning to identify the show directors and who they are. And the same with a couple other things. I'd like to put a little in, just a couple title slides at the beginning. So that's why.
Okay. I think artists are spoiled because I put Zoom meetings up as soon as they're over.
Yeah. But we've got, there's about 8 of us that are actively doing stuff, and we're all also trying to be real artists at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I used to be a board member.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Popcorn.
so I saw, Larry, somebody used my favorite word to
Popcorn?
G-clay. I
And
hate
where?
that word. I hate it.
When was that?
When that word, when I see that word in a post or I hear that word come out of an artist's mouth, it's like that's it. I just shut down right there.
G Clay,
Yep.
just call it what it is. It's an inkjet print.
Yeah.
But isn't that word just literally the French word for something really ordinary, like printing or spraying or something?
Spurt.
It literally means spurt in French. And in French slang, it has a sexual connotation.
Oh,
At one time, about 20 years ago, at the very beginning of digital, when they were trying to figure out how to do digital prints, the very first inkjet prints were used. Inkjet printers were designed for the pre-press industry for doing proofs for like catalogs and things like that. They had 4 colors, and the inks were not real stable. So somebody went in and created some more stable inks. They started putting higher quality paper in them and did some tweaks to the software, and came up with these prints that were above average inkjets for the time.
Nash editions.
And that's where Nash didn't come up with the G Clay name. I don't remember who did.
No, but I met him.
Nash was one of the first people to
Right.
do the high end inkjets.
Right. I met him at PMA at an event,
They they had a mouthful of gum and they were trying to say chiclets, and it came out cliche and stuck.
So
literally stuck.
That's right.
Shortly after that, I mean, within 5 years of that, there were photo quality inkjet printers on the market that were way better. And, what was originally a G Clay would look horrible compared to even the $300 inkjets you can get today.
What about the chromogenic prints?
What do you mean by chromogenic?
That's a C print from a
Well,
negative
RA4.
on a photo paper.
Yeah, an RA4 print.
Right.
Those inkjets today, well, that printing process hadn't even really been developed yet.
Yeah, I know. Fuji, I forget the name of the paper they used in the Fuji Frontier printers.
Yeah,
Henry-
Fuji
Henry,
front.
Henry Wilhelm did a study on that. I have his autographed book in the basement.
Yeah, Wilhelm's full of shit because Wilhelm got paid by the printers, and if you look at how he, if you look at what he considered normal fading, how the percentage he considered normal
What, 70 years?
was outrageous.
70
It
years?
was like, what's that?
70 years.
No, I'm talking about the way Wilhelm tested the stuff was they threw it in advanced aging, which is basically they put in a box with really super bright lights that
Right.
ran 24/7. And they mathematically figured out that much light equated to
How many?
every hour equated to so many days of normal light.
Right.
And then their standards for when it failed were a straight 30% fade. So when the print faded by 30%, that's when they considered it done. Now, it could fade, and the different colors don't fade the same. The different dyes don't fade the same at the same rate. So
And
some
actually-
dyes fade faster, some fade slower.
Yeah, and different manufacturers use different testing methods on their paper. And,
Right.
and he was totally against Kodak and Dura paper because of that. Kodak lied on their longevity ratings for the paper.
What we're talking about, so everybody else understands, is when you go and get a photographic print. Used to be you'd go to a photo lab and get them, and now you get them, you mail off to someplace like MPix or
Right.
wherever, and you get photographs. The same photographic prints that you're getting now are on the same photographic material that was been used the last 30 or 40 years. It was in use in photo labs before digital. What they
Right.
did is they just came up with a way of digitally printing onto this material.
Lightjet and Frontier.
And Fuji Frontier was the name of the piece of equipment that was designed for all the 1 hour places. And it turned the market on its head because it was outstanding at what it did.
Right.
But what's happened over the last 20 years is that technology hasn't really changed because it still depends upon some 40, 50-year-old paper and chemistry technology. Inkjet printers the ink technology has advanced rapidly in the last 20 years. It started to slow down a little bit now, but most inkjet printers, when you go buy an inkjet photo printer, you don't have 4 inks. You have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So what that does is basically when you see a photo on your computer screen, that's about 16 million colors. Photo paper can reproduce about a little over 16,000 different colors. So you're going from 16 million to roughly 16,000 colors. So you lose a lot of very subtle color differences. You lose a lot of colors, but it's not evenly defined. It's not evenly reduced. Certain colors like greens and reds were difficult to produce in the first place. So you lose a lot more in your reds and greens than you do in, let's say, a blue or a yellow.
So everybody's eyes rolling now.
So, well, I mean, it comes into play when you photograph your artwork. You have your art, if you do things printed, you know, you wonder why, oh, this really nice green that I had in my, you know, my piece of artwork, when I had it printed, it doesn't look that green, you know, it looks blue and my red looks orange. You know, I don't have that nice vibrant red.
Well,
So
I
that's what's
also
happening.
noticed it made some of the colors almost like neon. And
Yeah.
I'm not really printing them out. I'm just keeping records with some, but you know, one was sort of a peach color orange and then that had purple with it. And the combination somehow I ended up with a neon orange and practically a neon purple for some reason.
So that's what they did. And then the other thing was the Wilhelm who Larry was talking about was was probably the first guy to come along and do independent testing on how long these photographs would last. If you hung it on the wall in where it was not in direct sunlight, how long would it be before this thing faded? I mean, we've all seen old color photographs that are, you know, horribly faded.
Or
They
you
don't
take it
fade.
out of the frame and what's underneath the edge of the frame is much
Yeah.
brighter.
So the inkjet inks, the newer inks, are much more resistant to fading than the photographic prints are. But have you ever seen any reports by Ardenberg Imaging, Larry?
Now, I stopped writing for Shutterbug magazine over 20 years ago.
Well, Ardenberg, and I understand Wilhelm's changed theirs a little bit, but Ardenberg measures fade in each color, each of the primary colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And they fail it when any one of those single colors hits 10%.
10% enough to where like a layperson would notice or care?
No. If you looked at the faded print versus a normal print and you put them together, if it was a 10% overall, yeah, you'd probably notice it a little bit. But what tends to happen is certain colors tend to fade first. So you get a 10% fade in one color, but like a 2 or 3% fade in a different color. And that can give you a fairly noticeable color shift when you put them side by side. If you don't put them side by side, you're probably not going to notice.
Yeah, it's like printing from a high-res JPEG or a TIFF. There's no difference unless you actually lay them next to each other and look at them with a magnifying glass.
The exception to that, Larry, is the black and white printing process I use.
Because you have multiple blacks.
Yeah, well, multiple shades of gray.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to a true 16-bit printer. So.
Okay, so much for the photography history.
Well, and you know, to get back to G-Clay, it's an outdated term. It's meaningless. I hear artists use the term not as what it was originally meant, a printing method or a type of print, but they use it to just mean reproductions in general.
Yeah, they use it in their artist statement. They think it means something.
And it doesn't. And when people that understand the process see that, you don't look very good.
So Crystal,
I-
what's your medium?
I'm an oil painter.
Do you do repros?
I do, but I only do them on kind of a not so fancy Canon Pixma Pro printer. So I think it's only got about 8 ink cartridges.
does
That's-
great.
Yeah, that's
That's great
more than
prints.
enough.
I did, when you were talking about the fading though, it reminded me of a photography class I took in art school. I had a heck of a time getting pinks to print properly. And I have one painting that is has lots of bright pinks. Now you can't see it. And I have a heck of a time in Photoshop trying to edit it so I can get it to look somewhat like the actual painting.
Yeah, that's because you're getting into an area where to create the pinks, you're actually mixing 2 inks. Basically, when you deal with, what we see, we're dealing with red, green, and blue. And when you do any kind of anything on print, it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And, it's the opposites. You think it would work, but we're also dealing with transmitted light versus reflected light.
Well, or additive versus subtractive color.
So
Do
if
the
you-
do the pinks look accurate in Photoshop?
Yes, but I mean, they're always going to look brighter when I'm looking at them on my laptop than anything I can print, of course.
Yeah, you don't have
So-
a desktop?
What?
You don't have a desktop computer?
No, I just have a MacBook.
Can you calibrate it?
Yeah, I've calibrated it. I've been able to get pretty good prints. It's just not nearly as easy as any other paintings. Like this one behind me is one of my oil paintings, and it's super easy to print. But the
Yeah,
bright
it's
pinks
like you
always
only
get
have
me.
only one color in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Orange is that, it's not a bright orange. It's kind of a middle orange, and you've got grays. That one could be a problem to print because getting a nice, clean, neutral gray can be an issue at times.
I guess I lucked out then. It's one of my easier ones to print. But I don't call them Z clays.
They're just reproductions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people just use that term to try to sound fancy and make the thing sound like
Oh, good.
Yep.
something better than what it is.
Did you hear that, Court?
There's only been a couple times in my life where I've absolutely just crushed somebody. Just mentally, just ruined probably their week or month.
You have that
One
power?
time I walked into. I'm holding up my middle finger for you, Barry.
He
I'm
calls-
asking. I'm impressed. What,
He calls himself a photographer, and that's better than what he is.
I walked into a gallery in a Kansas City suburb, a kind of upper scale mall, and on the Kansas side, and I was looking around at some of the work, and they had some things listed as giclées, and this was back in the day when people still used the term a lot, but the inkjet printers had developed so they were just as good. But inkjet still had a bad reputation. So I'm walking around looking at the gallery, and this young lady comes up to me, and she works there, and she's asking me this, and I mentioned that I was a photographer and mentioned that I did, black and white, and I used an inkjet printing process that was dedicated. And as soon as I said inkjet, she just kind of like shut down. And I kind of continued. I could see it. I mean, I could see it on her face. And it's like, I was just another Joe Blow photographer. And so we talked for a few more minutes. talked about it in a minute or two, and then I looked at her and I said, "Do you know what a G-clay print is?" And she goes, "Well, not really."
Oh, of course.
And I looked at her and I said, "It's just another name for inkjet print." And you could just see her face just fell. And I said,
Hey,
"Bye," and left.
Hey.
it's like the printer you have in the office that prints out your spreadsheets.
Hey, Court, you know what bothers me about that is that they hire these people that don't know anything.
Yeah.
The whole
And
it isn't just
they call them jurors.
it isn't just oh don't I can't get started on that one. You know what? I'm really glad that we couldn't talk the other day when I watched the jury thing. We'd still be having a discussion.
About what? About what, Barry? Come on.
No,
Let's go
no.
there right now because I'm tired of I'm tired of dealing with this. I am honestly I'm tired of listening to people whine
I'm
about
not going to whine.
jurors.
I'm not whining. Listen, anything I say has a lot of thought involved. Okay, so I found that okay, the term bias, okay, comes up a lot, and but what people bring is a negative. It's a negative connotation when they bring a bias, as if jurors um, invite only invite their friends. That's not bias. That's not the bias. That's not what's happening. I know these people. They're not being like that. The bias is their taste, and it's only one taste. There's other because there's always been movements through history and the taste changes. In fact, look at Van Gogh sold one painting. He wasn't in fashion. No, it was only much, much, much years later, and now he's revered. So the taste is different. And and when David Dorson was making a comment about booths of being professional, well, there's a lot about booths that I find it horrible that booth image has so much weight because people apply that it's one thing if you have the money and you can make a really nice booth or there's two of you setting up so you could do it so you can have a really elaborate booth. But if it's somebody old like me with one booth that has to do it all myself, I'm limited as to how I can do it. And also there's a philosophy behind my booth, how it looks, meaning I'm separating myself from everybody else. When you walk into my booth, when you see it from outside, you don't think it's anything special. But when you walk in, you can see every piece and you block everything out. And that's, so there's different reasons why booths look a certain way, or they're set up a certain way, or you have a certain way. And it has nothing to do with how professional you are. I that really upset me because, it's funny because at one time when I was younger and could do this, I had the ultimate gallery booth. I always did. But now it's different. And that shouldn't be part of it. I believe that the artwork should be the only thing that counts.
I didn't get that from him. My booth is not perfect. My booth shot is not perfect. Barry, it's
I don't know what
probably
your
closer
booth
to yours.
and I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying that there's you have to be more open to that. And also, why am I not on a jury?
Okay.
Nobody would ever hire me for a jury, and my skill set, I have as much go I can do it as much as anybody.
Here's the thing. Main Street Fort Worth tells the jurors not to include the booth picture in their scoring.
Yeah, so it's different every single one, but still, it's still based on somebody's taste.
But all it has to do is look professional. It doesn't have to be.
Look at when Jay is saying that, he said, "Well, I could make 3 shows out of the shows, out of the showy jury. I think it was Cherry Creek or something.
Yeah, Cherry Creek.
And yet,
It was St. Louis.
and yet the people that were in that show are still the same ones. If you can make 3 and it was totally unbiased, then out of 10 shows, everybody would get into 3 shows because it would be a coin flip. But yet it's heavily weighted for certain people. And that's because of the way their work looks. It's more acceptable. That's a bias. It should be more open. My
I don't see
suggestion,
that.
huh?
I don't see that.
Well, that's okay. See, I can't bring this up because you don't see it. People don't see it. I see it.
Let me get into this. I it's not the one that's been writing about it. The problem that I gotta mention this to you, Core, is that from looking outside, you always get from the 200 artists, you get 150 artists at the same time, and that's why people think that whatever reason. Okay, I'm not going to go into the. If you're doing it the way it's supposed to be, there's no way to that to be happening really mathematically. Statistically, it's impossible. But I'm going to. I don't know. I just don't know how to. It looks like they're going for the same look, but the problem is there's no way really to say this bias because you cannot prove that neither. You see one thing, but there's no way to say this actually happening. You cannot say that what you're saying, Barry, is 100% true, and what Core is saying is cannot be 100% true because nobody really can tell one way or another, but definitely there's no way to really prove it that this is it. So it's nobody's telling me yet from everybody that I asked how you can prove this why these 150 people get all the time, even when it's different jurors, or how can that possibly happen statistically because it's not possible you truly doing a blind system. So there's no way to prove that you are right, Barry. There's no way to prove the court is right.
Wait a
right
minute.
now.
Hey,
Hold
come on.
hold on. The solution is to say, okay, you can only judge 2 shows a year at most, so that every show has to have different jurors. I like the peer thing. I like it us, but hey, let different people jury. Let me jury. You know, I have a I I have 5 years in college. I taught clay. I taught art in school for as a grad assistant. I put a gallery together from scratch and ran it for 12 years. I've written a database for where we carry. I did trade shows where I bought. I did trade shows where I sold. Why am I not being called? And the same people are getting called all the time.
Okay,
You don't know, but you
how
don't know
about-
who's getting called.
how
All you
about
know is
you can only do a show 2 or 3 years out of 5 years?
Well, if you do
that
two,
would
If
be
you-
a better solution actually to make it a limit like you have to do like every 3 years you have to rejury
Well, not the
category.
jury.
Or skip the year.
keep in mind, I'm not saying anything negative about any people. You know, they do a great job. That's not my point. My point is it's their taste. You know, they can say, well, they're unbiased, but they still have a taste. They still have a style that they accept. And
No,
it's
but you
different
cannot-
people
you
have
cannot
different
say-
styles.
You cannot say that really because I can tell you
What do you mean I can't
I
say
just-
that? That is it.
no because you go to let me give you 2 samples. Out in the square in Belleville in St. Louis Art Fair. Though there was only 25 last year there was maybe 20 to 25 people from Belleville that was doing St. Louis Art Fair. Everybody else was not there. Now, this weekend I heard somebody saying that the person that used to be the director that now is the mayor got run out of there by 2 lesbians. That's the way that they say it.
That
to me.
doesn't happen. That's ridiculous.
I just telling you how
Patty
crazy.
Gregory, let me tell you something. The Patty Gregory stepped down because she became the mayor of Belleville.
I,
That story is
I-
ridiculous.
I just telling you what people are saying.
That
Don't get
doesn't.
mad at me.
What does
I
that?
just
What does that have to do with anything anyway?
what have to do with it because people keep complaining. They keep making shit all the time. Let me put it
Well,
to you
they're
this
wrong.
way.
Well, they're wrong.
I know. I don't argue this to you. I posted the post in 4 different places. I posted it in my site. I put it in the NIA. I put it in the one for Larry, the jury's thing, and I posted in the our launch from Mike Grosser. You have to see the responses that you're getting in Mike Grosser. And there was one lady in there that you helped Larry, and I hope it's not you, Christine. They were saying that I've been getting to every single show since I got Larry help. And then I go like, so wow, that's impressive. And then you start looking more closely.
Really?
All the shows in Florida. So like, yeah, you're getting all the shows in Florida. How in the hell that's going to compare to the rest of the nation when Florida has its own market, its own jury system? It's totally different from everybody else. You know, I just going like, seriously? So
Well, Florida,
but
they're looking for those Florida scenes. I want to
they're not
know
looking for
why. It
that's
used to
also
be that.
not true.
I want to know why there used to be 30 Potters in every show. Now there's 8. And
Be-
like at Cherry Creek, they showed how many applied and how many got in. 100 people in Clay applied, and they let in 8. How many painters are there? If they let in 20, hey, or even double it, 16, then I got a greater chance of getting in. Why? What happened? I must have been asleep because when they started cutting down the amount of clay that was in there, at one time it was almost the biggest category. Why is it only
Well,
8?
Cherry Creek is not, it's 2D and 3D.
No,
It's not categorized, isn't it?
No,
no,
Oh, there's still
it's
St. Louis is
categorized.
two.
No,
St. Louis is
I'll tell
2D,
you
3D.
what's like that.
Des Moines and
is
St.
like that.
Louis,
Des
right?
Moines is 2D and 3D.
Yeah.
no, they
Um,
no anymore.
Not
Des
anymore
Moines
with
is
Des
not like
Moines.
one.
Des Moines
Oh,
went back
really?
to, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. That's interesting.
Uh,
Hey, I don't
so
mind when a director reserves the right to balance the show by letting somebody in to balance the show with amount of like
you know,
certain
the
categories.
the best thing I heard so far that as a solution is that they should have say let's run that up. You got 200 artists and you got 7 categories. I don't know if you can do that. I just throw in a number, and then you
I think
make the
there's
space
10.
available equally by each category. So if that means 20 photographers or 10, 20, if it's 20 photographers, it should be 20 painters, yada, yada, yada. But I
But
don't
then
know.
here's what happens with that, Oscar, is one of the takeaways that I got from the director's Zoom was all the directors want the best possible art they can get. That's what they want.
But I understand that. But
Based on their knowledge of what is good, not
that's
the best.
No. The directors are driven to a large degree by the community that they're putting the show on in. Okay? They don't judge it. They don't make decisions on what's good and what's bad. They don't make decisions on style either, really. So, Barry, when you talk about, you see the same style everywhere, I think that's more of you're seeing the same artists everywhere.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Look at I can only talk about Clay. Well, no, I can talk about other ones, but the ones I know are Clay. I'm telling you, there are Clay artists that are great, no doubt about it. They're way beyond, and they can't get into any of these shows. I'm not going to bring up any names because I don't want them to start applying again. They're really great. And so the best, I'm telling you, in terms of clay, the best ones aren't getting in. And some of them have stopped applying because they stopped getting in. They didn't want to throw their money away. I don't know what the other mediums are like, but in clay, that's definitely it. And nobody knows the degree of difficulty. I think it's the hardest medium to get right. Now they have it right in Japan and Asia and Europe. It's on a. But
I just think that
clay is the Rodney Dangerfield of the art world.
no, I would say
It's not understood.
fabric.
It's not understood.
Fabric is the one that's the worst from everybody, to be honest.
Come and fire with me, and you'll go, "Oh my God, how does anybody do this?"
Well,
and maybe it's a
right
bias. Maybe I'm just biased. I don't know.
No, it's. I just think that honestly, nobody had come up with a good solution. Everybody that knows is agree that something is wrong with the program, and some people say I'm paying my dues. That's what I'm getting to the shows now that I'm getting. But the problem is, like I said to the person that I was talking this weekend, I'm here for at least another 10 years. And that's what I care. I care about the industry. I care what's going on. That's what I'm looking forward. I don't know where it's going to go. I know that a lot of the younger people don't see that where they are evaluating their work themselves, where they are right now. I think they get into the presentation that they want to see as extremely expensive, and it's not something that somebody starting out wants to do because it's a lot of money rest in front to see if it's going to work or not, or if you even can handle it. And who knows, 5 years from now you decide it's not good. So
hey Court, don't put me in the category of somebody who's complaining about the way it's juried, because I'm not like, I believe that it's all fair. So do not. The only reason why I bring anything up is because I want to make shows better. That's always been my motivation for everything. And I have the perspective of 40 years of doing this and how it's evolved. So
Barry, let me just tell you something. And this has come from being a minority perspective. The system is not fair. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not fair, but you work around it.
You know why it's fair, though? It's fair because it's unfair for everybody. It's the same for everybody. That makes it fair.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask.
Does anybody?
Yeah. Exactly.
Can you understand my logic in this? It's fair for whatever it is.
No.
If it's unfair for everybody. It's the same for everybody. And
because it's not fair to the person that is almost there and can never crack the code for XY reason, because people, what they consider as good is based on their personal experience and what they believe is good. Don't necessarily have to be with what, perfect example you use, Van Gogh. Nobody thought he was good, and now he's the more revealed person. So, maybe that's the judges that everybody's using, even they are different people, they are all in the same mentality. They go for art directors, and they all go for the same. They all think this is good because that's what they've been taught. That's good, and they're not looking beyond that. The other thing that I always complain about is people get too much into the technical stuff and don't look more the creation part. But that's just my opinion, and I'm not going to fight it because I'm in the minority on that. So,
No,
but I don't.
You're not, Oscar. You're not.
Okay.
Barry, I have a question for you.
Sure.
First of all, I'm sorry I got a little. I'm just honestly, I'm just tired of dealing with
I
not
understand.
you, but other people.
I understand it. I totally understand you. I don't hold anything against you. I don't mind these conversations, Court. I hope you don't hold it against me.
No, but let me
Okay.
ask you a question. You're
Sure.
talking about you're seeing fewer potters in shows now.
There it,
than-
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
The one category that I've noticed is mixed media, and it's gone the other way.
Yeah, I know.
When
know
I
how that
started doing
happened?
shows, I mean, you had, I mean, if you want to get into show, you just, as a photographer, I would have slapped something on my print and called it mixed media, and I would have gotten in damn near any show I applied to, as long as what I had wasn't total crap.
Hey,
Um,
Court, I can't believe I said that. Court, you know how that happened? At one time, there were hardly anybody in the mixed media category, and people were getting rejected from their categories. So they said, hey, I'm going to apply in mixed media because there's less people. And that went on for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, and it built up, and now it's the biggest category.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched that for a long time. Hey, let's apply this guy. We can get in. So, and
But
now it's one of the hardest ones to get into. So,
because shows, I think, float those numbers, they don't set hard numbers in each category. I think that maybe that may have some impact on ceramics and potters.
But the other thing that when you don't do it, Barry, but every time you think about ceramics in general, they're thinking mugs, they're thinking functional stuff. They don't think decorative ceramics. And maybe that should be if you do ceramics, it had to be no functional. Like I think that
well, some shows divide the categories, but let me tell you something. There's functional and non-functional.
we lost Barry.
He just disappeared.
Just was getting better.
That must have been Facebook.
Oh my goodness.
So
Well, he's definitely non-functional.
yeah. Hey, does everybody like my booth picture?
Yes.
Did you see somebody posted that on Artist Garage? They were selling their booth.
Yeah, like they didn't want us to see their artwork for some reason.
Right. So I asked the question, how much for the artwork?
I just happened to go into the garage group, and somebody got a hell of a deal, a tent and pro panels for, was it like $700, $700, I think. I got there right. I mean, it had only been posted a few hours before, but it was a full setup, and it was under $1,000.
Which part of the country though?
Florida.
Yeah. There's a lot of them that come up for sale in Florida because the artists that moved there and are retiring.
Hey, Barry,
Yeah.
you said non-functional and then you disappeared.
Oh, that's because my laptop, I only had a certain amount of power on my laptop, and I'm sitting in a rest area, and I'm using my phone's hotspot, and I only had a certain amount of time on my laptop, and it cut out just at that moment. Okay, I thought about this the other day. We have functional and non-functional, thrown and hand built. We have high fire, medium fire, low fire. At high fire, there's porcelain, and then there's Co-9 reduction firing. Mid-range, and also electric. At mid-range, there's electric firing. This is all within these same categories. There's electric firing, and then some people do what's called a hold in their electric firing, and which creates different. You can make a piece. It's wide open on the experimentation. And then there's low fire, and then raku. At low fire, there's raku. There's Sager fired. There's pit firing. There's a whole bunch of these different categories in the same medium.
I wouldn't call them categories. I'd call them techniques.
Yeah.
Okay, but then why in painting do they differentiate between? Well, we have some colorists, and we have acrylic or whatever. We have abstract, and then there's
But-
there's all these things, and
But those are
aren't they
techniques
separate?
too. If
Yeah,
it's broken
but they're
up,
not-
it's
but there's
watercolor and oil paintings might be separate categories.
Yeah, this is actually only my first year of traveling out of the area to do shows, but the only separation I've seen is watercolor is its own thing off most of the time, and then oil/acrylics is in a separate category, but
Right.
that's the only way they separate them.
I mean, let's talk about digital versus analog photography.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
but they
thought you-
don't
but those
separate
are
that.
those are separate. Are those separate categories?
No, they
No.
don't separate that at all.
No,
don't separate anymore.
It's only the photographers that feel that it'll give them advantage will say whatever they need to say.
You know what they really need to separate it is the digital from photography.
Wait, you
Digital
broke up.
art from
What?
photography. They still,
Oscar, you're breaking up.
Hey,
sorry,
breaking up is
what
hard
they
to
need
do.
to do is separate. It's what they need to do is separate digital art from digital photography. They're putting in all the shows both together, and it's becoming a pain in the ass because really you cannot compete, even if you're doing traditional photography and with a digital camera, you cannot compete with digital art in the same category. It's going to be really, really hard. It's not even fair with how people see both things because
Well,
they
they both
think,
have different definitions. One
yeah,
is
but they put,
created on the computer, the other's created behind the lens.
yeah, but that shows they put both things into one.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't either.
I'm going to next week when I got a little more time, I will look and I make a list of the shows. There's a few.
Hey, well, my crusade is really I want the clay to be 16 or 15 or 16 instead of 8 or 9, because then I'll have a greater chance of getting it. It's strictly personal. I need to get into the better shows because at these lower end shows or these shows that aren't as good, I don't do very well. It's just frustrating as hell. I get compliments. It attracts the wrong people. I had this past 2 weekends, it was torture. All I got were compliments. If I got a penny, even just a penny from all the compliments, it might have been my best show I've ever had. I mean,
Yeah, how much is your rent? 15 compliments?
You can't eat compliments. It's terrible. I mean, come on, shoot me. One of you, you have permission to shoot me and put me out of my misery. I mean, I say this tongue in cheek, but man, come on.
Larry, or Barry, I thought about putting a tip jar up.
I did it once. I've done it. I got $13. It was great.
And I've also thought about putting up a sign that, every medium has the sayings that somebody walks into the booth and they look at your work and they give you the same compliment. In photography, oh, you have a great eye. Or in my
really?
case, it's
Do you
I
want to
love
see
black and white.
or do you want to see my pictures?
No, I don't want to see your pictures. I don't want to see your nephew's pottery from their pottery class. Hey, Court, I relate to what you do because you're not just black and white, but you're on the edge. You're exploring something, and it takes a brain actually. People with brains to actually stop and look at what you're doing and try and understand it. So you're not any different than me in that.
Right.
They're going, what the hell? What the hell is this? It's a hard sell, isn't it? A hard sell, Court?
Yeah, I'm going to put a sign up in my booth that says, has these little sayings and a price next to them. Like, I love black and white, $5. You have a great eye, $15.
That's great. That's fun. Yeah, I mean, I look at your work and I go, oh, he's got the same problem I do. They have no concept of what's going on because it's a concept. They're not getting your concept. It's funny. It's not funny. It's tragic. Anyway, we can laugh about it. Got to laugh to keep from crying, right?
Yeah.
That's how I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you have
I had two ladies at the plaza that just, came in and looked at my work, and I looked at them, and they both made similar comments, and it's like, yeah, you obviously don't get it.
And you don't have time to explain it 5,000 times.
No, I don't think I could have explained it to these two ladies. They honestly, I mean, these two ladies were in there and so wrapped up in their suburban worlds
Yeah.
that they honestly didn't think anything existed outside that.
So they didn't offer to take you to dinner.
And if it did
No.
exist outside that, then it was somehow depressing or less than, I know a lot of people that live in $30,000 houses in small towns that love it, that are much happier than people living in $1 million suburban houses. So they just didn't get it. And it's just like, I don't even want to go there. But yeah, Barry, you're right. You have to get into a certain type of show to get the people that understand your work.
And it's less and less every year, it seems.
Yeah.
And you can add, depending on the quality of the show, you're going to get quality buyers that appreciate the price that you're asking for. There's some shows I've been going, at least in here in Florida, that the only way to sell it if you're giving them a super ridiculous deal. And the thing that I noticed about here in Florida is that mostly with photographers, they are charging way too less. Like said that the print, I know they cost $200 to make, they're only charging $400 to sell it. And then they still offering discount to the person on top of that.
That's because people see it as a commodity. They don't see it as
All right.
as art.
Well, it's supply and demand. There's a point where they're willing to pay X and the supply is X, and it's the price of an item is where the two people actually come together. It's determined by the market, not by, oh, I have to sell this at a certain price. That's Econ 101.
Yeah, but that's not something that that particular show I most likely will not do again because of the type of crowd it brings into it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. There's just not enough good. I made a comment about they should have an emerging director show, or not show, but
A conference.
A conference, and it got interpreted. It didn't get interpreted correctly. What I meant was current show directors of some lesser shows should be made to like if Stephen King have the best show directors, educate them, they have to work for Stephen King and see what he does and how he does things. Simple things like setup. How, his setup's great. It's not it's not micromanaged. Some of these setups are so obnoxious because they're micromanaged. It takes 3 hours, it takes 4 hours to do something that should take an hour or 2 hours. We do a better job ourselves because we're experienced doing it. I hate it when I got somebody moving me around and telling me what to do. I don't need somebody who's only been there 2 years to tell me what to do. I've done this for a long, long time. Let me do it. Let us do it. We're more efficient.
On her defense, I'm going to say this.
Who are we talking about?
Don't worry about it. On her defense, you have to have the same set of rules for everybody because you're going to get the asshole that parks
Yeah, we're not.
comes with the,
Listen.
wait, let me finish. That brings the big truck with the trailer, parks right in front of everybody else and blocking 5 spaces. And
Yeah,
he starts breaking down the booth at that point. It doesn't have nothing down yet. I'm sorry for your inconvenience, Barry, but I
I'm
will
not.
tell you this.
Wait a
Bring the
minute.
fucking
You're
tent down
assuming I'm.
completely to the ground and then bring your fucking car inside and load it up in 30 minutes, get the fuck out of the space and be done.
I'm not. No,
End of
that's
the story.
that's twice
No.
as much work. That's twice as much work. That takes me
It's
long enough.
not twice
I'm
more
not.
work.
Wait a minute. Will you
You
stop
just-
for a minute?
you-
I'm
you're
not
complaining
talking
about
about the
yourself.
person you. I'm not talking about the person you think I'm talking about, because that was not her fault at all, and that will be resolved next year. That was shockingly. That was like, oh my God! Look at this. That was not her. That was not her fault. So I'm just telling you, and I would never. No, that's. And I don't want to bring up I don't want to bring up specific shows, but I'll bring up one, Gasparilla. Why in the hell should it take, if they're going to line you up, let you in, because those are the people that were running, that were the volunteers, not the police. The show you're talking about, that was a police thing. It was the city. It had nothing to do with in fact, the
Coconut
one thing
Grove,
I heard
right?
afterwards is that'll be resolved for next year. So there, Oscar.
I just said what is a normal thing.
Wait a minute. You're not talking. Where are you talking about? The last show I just did?
No. I'm not saying anything else. Just figure it out yourself when you want to talk to me privately.
Because the last show I did, actually, I got told one thing, but then I was allowed to do it my way, and it worked a lot better. I was allowed to drive in after everybody left, and I could just load up my vehicle and hey, celebrate. I want to celebrate. I'm always the last one out on their shows, and I wasn't the last one done yesterday or 2 days ago or whenever it was. I actually,
was told.
huh?
I was told.
You were told what? You were told
there was betting that there was betting that you'll be the last person, but they knew that you won't be.
I wasn't the last one. I was close to the last one, but I wasn't the last one.
Anyhow, so but it's all good. Okay, guys, I'm going to let you go because I need to go and have dinner.
Taco Tuesday.
No, actually, Steak Tuesday.
You're not going to Taco Tuesday. You've had enough.
No, we're having Steaks Tuesday today.
You're going to the other place? You're going to the good place?
No, we barbecuing in the campground tonight.
Oh, barbecuing. Oh. Well, I'm going to drive right over. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in northern Georgia. I can't drive over. But
no, you can't. Thank you. I will let them know you're still alive. See ya.
Oh yeah. Hey, Oscar took me when I was in Florida with Oscar. He took me to this Cuban place, and it was great Cuban food. It was really good, and they had Cuban coffees, which I haven't had since I was in Miami, and I really appreciated it. I actually went back a couple times, and it was cheap, $1.62 for basically what amounted to 4 espressos, because it was, they put it in a cup. Don't drink it all at once. So
I gotta plug tomorrow night we're doing an NAIA emerging artist Zoom.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there for that, definitely.
Okay. We're gonna kind kind of set up some topics for about the next 4 or 5 months.
How are you doing that? Are you going to have people like on a panel and you're going to have them call in and ask questions, or you're going to let the emerging artists, whoever comes in can speak? How is that going to work?
It's going to depend upon what the topic is.
Well, like
Different
tomorrow.
topics. Tomorrow is going to be emerging artists talking about the things they want to learn.
Okay, so they're doing all the talking.
Yep.
And there's going to be no quote unquote experts.
Well, the
there's
experts
gonna
will
be-
answer their questions.
There's going to be 2 hosts that have a lot of experience, 3 hosts that have experience that can answer some of their questions. But primarily tomorrow is going to be, what kind of things, what needs do you have that we can fulfill? And then after we get that list of topics, and we'll bring in people that are, experts or know those topics really well. And depending upon how many people we have, other things, then it might be an open discussion, might be like the moderated Zooms we did with the show directors. It's depends upon a lot of things, a lot of different variables.
So who are the experts that you're going to have tomorrow answering the questions? Just out of curiosity.
Bonnie and I are the hosts. And we're really not. Tomorrow night is more along the lines of, trying to figure out where we want this to go. And that's
Uh-huh.
going to be driven by the emerging artists.
By the questions they ask, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you defining like what an emerging artist is? I feel like I'm kind of in between and I don't really know.
How many shows have you done?
Well, I did the emerging artist program at Ann Arbor, the original, back in 2018 when I was still in art school. But I didn't do any art fairs after that. And then I just did artisan markets and stuff here in where I live in Ann Arbor. And then this is the first year that I'm traveling out of the area doing art shows. So far I only know about 4 that I've gotten into. There's one in Decatur, Belleville, 4 Bridges, in Chattanooga, and then Ann Arbor, the original.
You got into
How many have you
Belleville?
done? How many have you done though?
Let me ask you this, because this is I thought about this. NAIA has talked about this. NAIA does not have any set standard for what is or is not an emerging artist.
The shows.
Intentionally, we leave that up to shows to decide how they want to do that. For these Zooms, my criteria is if you still feel like you're a new artist, you are welcome.
Okay.
If
I
you're
feel like-
still if you're still struggling, feel like you're struggling to figure out things that you kind of consider the basics about picking out shows or displays or bookkeeping or if you still feel like you've got a lot of questions, if you still feel like you're new, for me, that's an emerging artist.
Okay. I definitely feel like I'm new. I don't feel so much like I'm struggling, but what I'm worried about is I don't know what I don't know. So I don't even know what questions to bring tomorrow.
Well, that's why coming to my Zoom meeting every week is useful, because different things get talked about.
Yeah, and I've been watching yours on YouTube after the fact, and this is like the first weekend that I got brave enough to show up.
Brave enough. Oh yeah, that's right. We're so scary. No, anybody, I never understood that.
We're all old guys with white hair or no hair.
Except we're not all guys though, Larry.
But if it becomes an issue, I will ask. I want this to be someplace where new artists feel comfortable with a bunch of other new artists, and I am intentionally not bringing in a bunch of experienced artists. to answer questions and do things like that. I want the new artists to drive this. I want them to tell me, okay, here's what we want to, here's what our needs are. Here's what we want to learn. Here's what we want to find out about. And then I'll bring in people, you know, that I think or recognize as experts, you know, in those areas. And, you know, if it's, you know, the format is, you know, you submit your questions ahead of time and I'll ask them. Or if it is, you know, here's this person, ask away, that's going to vary, you know, depending on how many people we have. You know, once we get above about a dozen to 15 people, having everybody just be able to ask questions with no moderation kind of starts to get out of hand. So again, it's going to depend upon the topic and all sorts of other things as far as what the format's going to be. So, and then we also have, actually tomorrow night, and I'm horrible with names and I've never met her, but tomorrow night we will actually have the lady that's been running the Emerging Artist Program, for the Guild will be with us tomorrow night.
Okay, speaking about shows that have emerging artist categories, Cherry Creek, as far as I understand, is the only show that their category is open to the entire country. All the other shows are very local to let local artists have a chance.
That may be true for the big shows. I have a massive list of shows that have emerging artist programs that I haven't gotten online yet. And that's going to be one of the things I go through and look at. All right, Gray, you got to talk down, buddy. My assistant was demanding attention. We will have soon, NAIA is also rolling out in-person emerging artist programs that shows can bring us in to do. We're going to have some more online resources for shows that want to create or improve their emerging artist program. So we're going to have some resources for shows and for artists as well. We have a current list of all the shows that have emerging artist programs. We just don't have it online, and I have to take blame for that.
Hey, you can only do so much at once. You know.
We are rolling out, and the Zooms are part of a kind of an overall program for emerging artists that we're rolling out this year.
Got to get them up on YouTube.
Yeah, so they can see them afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, none of us, I'm looking around, none of us, there weren't emerging artists programs when we started doing it. And my suggestion is always do the show and look around. And if you think that you're deficient in some area, you know, that's a really good way. You look around and make friends and ask or emulate what you think successful people are doing. For me, that was the best way that I learned. And I still think it's the best way. It's just like word of mouth. Which shows to do? Well, there's word of mouth. You know, ask around, and you got to be careful. You know, that you're getting the right advice. But even if you get the wrong advice, eventually you figure out which ones to do. You know, or which ones are good for you and not good for others. And listen, it isn't just, you can't just go by 1 year, because you build clientele. You know, you might not do so well in the first year. You build clientele, you know, you get better. Or the first year, because you're a newbie, you might do really well, but then it's downhill. And every show is totally different in terms of that. So, you know, you just do the shows, and
talk to
the
your
one,
neighbors.
and just do the ones you like. You might not like how it's run, or you might really like how it's run. Do the ones that you like, and then sell to those people and build a clientele. I love when people come back and say, we got a piece last year and we love it. Everybody loves it. It wasn't a great show, this last show I did, but the very first person came by and said, "Hey, I wanted to come and see you. I have your piece on my desk and I see it every day at work and I see it every day and it makes me feel good." Very first person. That's sometimes that's better than actually making a lot of money. Did I actually say that?
You can
But
have that as one of your sayings and charge for that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I mean, there's certain things that get you hooked. And if you haven't done a show, well, you don't have those people. So you have to do the show more than once. Or maybe it's so bad, you hated the way setup was, or they bossed you around, or your neighbors were horrible. I mean, there's a lot of reasons when it's really good. It's, when it's fun and it's easy, the setup is easy and everybody loves you. It's so much better than it was when it's totally the other way around.
Well,
Or
I just pulled up, this is, I just pulled up our outline for, our workshop, but we're going to talk about a lot of these things, in the Zooms. Making this a career. A lot of people, Barry's obviously made it a career, but a lot of people make this a full-time career. And talk about that and talk about being professional and, all sorts of things. And if we get,
Yeah, when your mother tells you to get a real job.
yeah,
you've been successful.
and, we may bring in some artists in specific, if we have, for example, if we wind up with a group that is predominantly painters, and we may, look at bringing in somebody that's a successful painter to talk about the way they do things. If we have, and we may do that anyway. So think about,
Yeah.
and not knowing the questions to ask is a good question. It's a good place to start.
There's no bad questions.
So
I'm curious what the emerging artist programs are like these days, because when I did Ann Arbor's back in 2018, it was super basic. We had one in-person meeting where we basically looked at a floor print of what our booth was going to be like and how the 5 of us were going to split it up. And then we were matched with people in our discipline or our whatever type of art. I was actually doing woodworking back then. So I was matched up with a woodworker. But that was just given an email address and I could ask them questions if I wanted. And then we showed up and did the art fair and that was about it.
what
Basic.
Yeah.
When I talk about NAI's emerging artist program, that's got a bunch of different parts to it. It's got some online resources for artists, got online resources for shows. The Zoom's on another part of that.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm
not
just curious what the shows are doing these days. I don't think that I would apply, in the emerging artist category anymore. I'm just curious about everything, basically.
Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what the NAI Emerging Artist Workshop is gonna be. It is gonna be an intro Zoom about the week, probably 4 or 5 days before the show. It will be the Friday night of the show. It will be a 3-hour, 3.5 hour in the evening, sit down class. And we're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about making it a career. We're going to talk about getting into shows. We're going to talk about having a body of work. We're going to talk about tents and vans and,
Yeah, I was at St. Louis when the year Cindy started the emerging artist program, where the emerging artists were all assigned artists to work with to help them set up, break down,
Right.
you know, so they understood exactly what was involved in doing an art
Right.
show.
We don't have, a lot of shows don't have that much time or to invest that. So we're gonna start with the Zoom, then we'll have the class on Friday night. Saturday morning, bright and early, probably start right before the show opens. As a group or a couple groups, depending on how many people there are, we're gonna walk the show and we're gonna look at things and we're gonna talk about things and look at, okay, I was talking about this kind of tent, here it is. I was talking about this kind of tent, or I'm talking about pro panels or this kind of display. Or hey, here's a really unique way to display 2D work or 3D work, and walk through the show and talk about those things. Then you will be a volunteer for the show for about somewhere between 2 to 4 hours later Saturday or Sunday. You'll be a volunteer, whatever the show wants you to do, so you can get an idea of what it's like on the other side. And then we will do a follow-up Zoom the following week. Now, if this works, we have plans to expand it into something like what St. Louis does, what Cindy set up for St. Louis, which is, it's a 2-year program. The first year
Apprenticeship.
you do some classes, and then you help an artist set up. You're assigned to spend some time in 2-3 artist booth, and you're assigned somebody to tear down, and then there's some panel discussions and classes that go along with that. And then the next year you exhibit.
Yeah. Hey, Court.
Yeah.
At Coconut Grove, Cindy set that up starting last year, and this year it was all set up, and then the cops wouldn't let us in. It started at 12. They were supposed to show up at the booth at 12 o'clock to help the setup, and the cops didn't let us in at all. It was 2:30 when I got in. I never saw my the people that were supposed to come and help me. I never saw them at all. It just kind of was a disaster, and it wasn't their fault, but it was the cops, and they wouldn't let us in, and we were pleading with them, please let us in. We have to get in to do this setup. And it was, it's a shame, because it would have been a cool thing. I would have appreciated their help, and I would have pontificated the whole time about shows and talked about it. I probably wouldn't shut up. I would have given them an earful, with anecdotes and everything, and it would have been cool. And I didn't get to do that. So,
So he's doing it here instead.
what is she doing?
I said, so he's doing it here instead. Pontificating.
Well, what
Yeah.
can I say?
And yeah, Cindy Lyric set up the 2-year program at St. Louis. When
Yeah.
she was director there, she's consulting with Camille on the program down there. And Cindy is one of the 3 people on the NAIA board that is working on this project for NAIA. So she is involved with this as well.
Yeah, she's really competent.
She's an extremely smart lady. She is. Kansas State was lucky to grab her as an instructor. Because she has a good mix of book knowledge and practical skills, or book knowledge and street smarts, I guess is the way to put it. So.
And she could teach directors that are afraid to do this how to go out into the community and get corporate money to underwrite the shows. Because she, when she talked to us at St. Louis, she would say that she had to turn away sponsors because they had too many. Whatever she did, she had them standing in line to give the show their money. And it's really great when a show has enough money to do it the way they want to do, the way they need to do it. It's so much better. And there's so many of these shows that like they don't have any corporate money, or they don't have enough, and the show, you can tell that the show's not, they're struggling with the money, or the money they get is from the artist booth fees, which at most shows that's only 10% of the cost. So you need that. The shows need that. It's like any business that's undercapitalized, it doesn't go anywhere. You need to have the money out front to have a good show. And I'm all for good shows, whatever it takes.
Here, here.
Crystal, is there one area that you don't feel as comfortable with as everything else? And I'm talking about the overall picture of business equipment, display, everything.
Actually, the one thing I struggle with because I'm an introvert is sales techniques. I can talk to people about my art, and I actually have a reason for why I produce my art. It's not just to make, something pretty or something that's going to sell. And so I love talking to people about my intent behind it, but it's really hard for me to actually sell it.
Well, but you are selling it because you're selling
Yeah.
yourself.
True.
You know?
I mean, I'm making a living, I'm supporting myself with it, but I'm just not comfortable in shows.
How to close a sale.
Yes.
You don't ask. Sometimes I think when I ask, that turns them off. So just just be yourself. I think that works. Make sure you engage it with people. Don't be arrogant, like sit in the back. The worst is like these people that sit in the back. I mean,
Their
like
head buried in
read a
their
book
phones.
or read. Well, yeah, now it's the phones. Read a book, whatever. And then you go on.
I struggle with the same thing, but one of the reasons that art shows are successful and still around when brick and mortar is basically going away, is I think there is a real big desire for buyers to have a personal connection with the artist.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get that online.
Right.
So that whole thing about talking about your art is pretty easy. It's how you transition or move that into making a sale. That's the really hard part.
Exactly.
I think all you need to do is connect. You don't have to sell it. Because with the square, people make comments. So over a period of time, there's X amount of comments, and then you hear what they actually liked about what you said. And basically, I don't think they're buying the piece as much as they're buying you. So be yourself.
That's true. Yeah.
Just be yourself. Don't overthink it. And everybody, struggles with closing the deal, and not everybody, and don't worry about it, closing the deal, because in a lot of cases, you're not going to close everyone, and you might only close a very small percentage. So like, oh gee, what, why couldn't I make that sale? Well, you probably weren't going to make that sale anyway.
Well, it also, a lot of it, it's your personality, but then also the price of your work. If you're selling a $700 piece as opposed to a $7,000 piece, that's kind of requires a little different sales technique.
Yeah, that's another thing I struggle with is I don't know what I should be selling my artwork for. it's really hard for me to come up with a price.
Don't worry about that either. It's experience. It's like you learn it through doing doing the events and figuring it out that way.
Just raise your prices.
You know, just look at what other people with comparable work,
And
look
size.
what they're selling for. And, you know, I would say it'd be okay to be above them, but you know, if you go to a show and there's 3 other artists that are doing work comparable to yours, and you know, you average it out and you're way below that, then yeah, you definitely need to raise your prices.
Okay.
Because I did a show last year and the lady next to me was a painter and her stuff was like incredibly cheap. It was well done, but it was just like price wise, she could have tripled her prices, easily doubled them. She needed to at least double them to be in the ballpark as everybody else.
Wow.
And when you get somebody that is that far off on the price, it can create issues for other artists. And then, you know, people come in and they're used to seeing a certain price range, and then they see yours and it's way below that. So that can leave them with, even though it's lower, it can leave them with an uneasy feeling if it's a whole lot lower.
Like, what's wrong with this? Why is it so low?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Funny thing about that, when I would do the trade shows, and it's basically mostly 3D stuff. So it was all 3D stuff. There was no painting and things like that. If the galleries that would come to buy, they know the price of things, and if somebody underpriced things, they would sell out because they knew that they could triple the price, you know. And so on one level, you know, the gallery owners that would know the price and see a bargain, they would buy this stuff and they would triple it. And at our fair, it works the other way around in most cases. It's like, well, what's wrong with this? You know? So, and if you're a beginner, you work your way up to that, you know. So you don't worry about it if you'd worry about it if you were way under everybody else. Quality, you know, it's also based on quality. If you're the same quality,
It's also
you know,
based on how professional your display looks.
and reputation and everything. So
Yeah, it took me a few years to get my pricing down.
yeah, I still struggle with it. I think everybody still struggles with it.
And you know, when you start getting into paintings and you start getting in stuff that's, you know, I'd probably say the cutoff is maybe 2,000 and up, maybe a little higher than that. You're not going to have somebody walk in the booth and buy it the first time, most likely. I mean, it'll happen occasionally, but people are going to, you know, I see, you know, I'll be near a painter and somebody will come in and buy a big piece. And almost every single time when it's a big piece, the comment will be, yeah, they looked at it last year, or they saw me at another show
Right.
2 months ago. It's never somebody it very rarely somebody just walks in and takes a big piece. So now then, when you're looking at this whole scheme of, okay, which shows do I do? Well, what shows did I do last year? Because if I go back and do some of those shows again, if I'm finding that it's taking, you know, 2 shows, doing a show twice before people are buying, then that's got to figure into your whole equation of which shows to do and all that. And then it's like, keep your fingers crossed that you can get back in.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, and the corollary to that is to make sure you have your cards or your literature, because they'll take it and think about it, and then you might get a call some months later. Now, when you're a beginner, it probably doesn't happen as much, but it does happen. And there's a lot of times when people go, oh yeah, I saw you at so and so, and we want to buy it. I thought about it all all winter long, and I want it now. I always, so they need to have a way to get a hold of you. So to have that card is a good thing. You get a lot of scammers too, but just you gotta put up with that, I guess,
And I guarantee you you'll do a show and then you'll come back and you'll do a show and you'll have your one huge big piece and you'll sell it and you'll come back to that show next year. And within the first 3 hours of the show, somebody's going to walk in your booth and ask you and tell you they want to buy that piece that you already sold.
Then you should have bought it last year.
Yeah.
Well, but I can make you another one. It won't be exactly the same, but but you'll like it even more. It's a year later. I'm that much better now.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, there's a lot of things you can say,
I was next to an artist that did his prices started at 15,000 and went up.
Jesus.
Hey, remember Bernie? She was an oil painter.
Yeah, I do remember her.
But this guy,
I saw her do 80 grand at Oklahoma City.
Not when she was next to me.
but this guy had, when I was next to him at a show, he had more than one person come in ready to buy a piece that he had sold. They saw it last year. Do you still have it? No. But he sold them something else.
Who's making that noise?
Who's
Probably
hungry?
my old man.
Oh. Yeah, I gotta feed Elvis.
Well, I got to go because I have to cook dinner, and I've got our pack Zoom tonight in 2 hours. So, Crystal,
that was fun.
tomorrow night. Huh?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. And I'm sure I'll try to think of more tomorrow, or at least I'll be there to listen to what everyone else has to say.
Yeah, Crystal, if you want, I have an email list of people that I send out a reminder every Tuesday morning for this meeting. If you want to send me an email,
Okay,
I'll add you to that list.
I'll do that.
And
Cool.
we will be setting up the same thing. An email list to send out reminders since it's going to be monthly. But just think about the areas, like you said, the pricing or closing the sales areas where you feel like you're struggling.
Okay,
That's a good place to start.
will do. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
All right, see ya.
see ya.
So I can get out of here.
Oh, I'll get you.